Today we are going to see. What if Bella gets imprinted on at a bonfire? So let's get started. Bella came down to the La Push bonfire after Jacob more or less demanding her to do so for him. And she agreed after some arguing, but she felt why not, and got herself dressed appropriately, for it would be cold tonight too, and her father was also going to be there. She knew her dad wanted her with Jacob, like himself also wanted to happen, but neither seems to listen to that. She is in love with Jacob and don't feel like that about him either. She may have her heart finally healed from Edward's leaving did to her, but she was definitely not in love with Jacob, as she felt nothing of sorts towards him, never will either. So after she drove them back down to La Push in the area of the bonfire was going to take place at, she pulled over and turned off the engine, and then she went out of the truck, leaving Jacob in somewhat confusion of how fast she went out of her car. And didn't even talk a word to him either. He felt something was different, but not what it was. Either way, he came after her, and Seth came over to say, "Hey Jake, hey Bella, well I save you some hamburgers." But Paul had to take all the sausages. Bella just giggled, as she knew that was so true about Paul, while Jake rolled his eyes but shocked to hear her giggling, as she said, "It is good to see you too, Seth. How has things been for you?" At that their eyes met, and everything stilled around the two, while Jacob growled angrily, and walked off somewhere, while Sam came over, as he had seen what had happened. Said, "Everything okay here, Bells, Seth?" Bella nodded, while Seth said, "Did IJ just imprint on Bella?" At that Sam sighed, but nodded, as Bella said, "Imprint, what is that?" At that Sam frowned, as he said, "I thought Jacob had told you about how Emily and I came to be a couple." "He did, but not what caused you to leave Leah or anything else, so what is imprinting?" At that he sighed. Then he proceeded to tell her everything, and Seth stood on his ground, waiting on what she would say or do next, as she said, "Well, I am just stupid not to accept it, after all I am not bound to anyone else really. Sam, besides Seth and I both need to get to know each other, for frankly, we don't know each other that well yet, Seth." At that they both nodded relieved, as Bella said again, "Will you tell Jacob off for not telling me about this, as I feel it is very important to know about, even if Jake feels something for me that I never will either back to him." At that Sam nodded, then he asked, "Is he in love with you or think he is?" Bella sighed, and told Sam and Seth, who stood next to her for now, and both were a bit worried about not only Jacob, but also if Edward and his family comes back. Then there could be issues, but Bella told them that she is now a wolf girl, as she rather would have Seth in her life than nothing, which caused Seth light up a bit more, and Sam just smiled at this. Then he left the two alone for now, and Seth led her a seat next to himself, which caused Charlie, Billy and Jacob to frown and wonder what was going on. Bella snuggled up into Seth's opened arms for now. Then old Quill, who sat next to his grandson and dog their in-law, Quill Jr. and Joy, began the tale of the wolves, the third wife and more. Charlie sat rolling his eyes, as he still to this day did not believe in any of this shit, as he called the stories by. As soon he was done, Billy was forced to take over his part of storytelling, and Bella sat in Seth's arms, cuddling into his warm body. And he did not mind at all this happened either. Jacob stared with hatred, wonder and anger in his eyes, while Charlie looked confused, and so did Billy. Others who knew by their looks what had happened, just smiled. So did his mother, as his father died on the same day that he and Leah shockingly became a wolf too. His mother had to learn about it all beforehand of this bonfire and still was trying melt it all. But she was happy to see one of their legends had happened to his son, and Bella she felt was a perfect mate for her shy, soft-spoken son, Seth. Leah too was happy for the two. But she hated it was that took Sam away from herself. After the stories had been told, Bella went with the pack to Sam and Emily's house for a meeting, while her father had to go home alone without her. As she told him that she was 18 now and could come and go whenever she wanted to without his permission any longer, and he was shocked of her words at him, but he left without saying another word to her. And Jacob went after her and Seth, while the two unconsciously held hands while walking to Sam and Emily's house. Jacob glared at their joined hands, as they neared the house and all walked in and sat down. Bella on Seth's lap for now. Sam stood after a few moments to let everyone come inside and sit down. Bella sat on Seth's lap without hesitation or feeling it was wrong of her to do so either. Jacob, Quill, Embry sat next to each other. Leah sat on one of Seth's side, and on the other side was Sam and Emily seated, so no way for Jacob to sit next to her or them at all. "All right everyone, tonight something really happy happened to Seth, so I give him the words to say them." Seth stood and Bella stood with him, by his side, while still holding onto his arm instead of hand now, as he said, Tonight I imprinted, and that was on Miss Isabella Swan next to me, and she has accepted as cordially, as we will be friends for now, and get to know each other before anything else, as we both agree we don't know each other that well yet, but we are both happy with what has happened tonight between us. Most of them cheered or just catcalled at them Paul and Quill's doings, but Jacob stared at them with hatred and jealously as well disbelief in his eyes. Sam and Emily as well Leah all just smiled at the two, and Bella blushed slightly of the attention she was given from it, but happily smiling like Seth was. Then the two sat down, she on Seth's lap again, and Sam took over again, and now spoke of the red-haired wench of Leech, and Bella gasped out loud and paled drastically, and held onto Seth's shirt. Who took notice, and said so all of the others heard him say. "Bells, what's wrong?" Bella, still pale-faced, said. "Yo, you are after Victoria, Sam." At that he nodded, and was alarmed of how pale she looked like, as she said, then turned to Jacob, said angrily. "You fucking told me that they knew about her already, why she is after me and why she really is here for, YT. He fuck did you not tell your alpha and friends about Victoria for, is it for I didn't choose you over Edward or now Seth or what else is there for you to keep that away from your pack mates, fucking idiot. She fucking was the one WHO killed Harry, or caused him to have a heart attack, for fuck's sake, and that is something I was told by your father and fellow friends including my own father there to hunt bears, what the fuck. Jacob EHPRIAM Black, if your mother was still alive she would take you over her knee and smack your bottom no matter your sizes now." Bella wept now in Seth's arms, the others were shocked of her yelling and what she revealed too, as Jacob looked furious and ashamed even, as Sam shook his head. "I want all details of this Victoria now, Bella, and I want to know the truth, Jacob. When we all are phased in few minutes, I won't let you hold anything back anymore, is that understood?" Jacob, forced by the alpha's demand, nodded against his will, while Bella then told them everything from the start. As she came to the last bit, "I told Jacob after he told me that you were all after the red-haired vampire girl, but you didn't succeed yet on catching her and taking her out for good. As she seems to evade you all, which means it is her gift. Which means when you are changed into a vampire, according to Carlyle's tale about it, you bring something that made you special as human. So for example Edward could read anyone's mind but not mine, most likely for I have mental shield that could evolve if I was to turn, but now it won't happen, but I have worked in secret to strengthen it and myself. Then we have Alice, his pixie, annoying shit sister, who could see the future and her mate, the scarred, blonde one who looks he is in pain, could manipulate your emotions to his own liking. He did that often to me, but he stopped after I told him that I want to feel whatever I was feeling and not be manipulated in any shape or form from him or any of them. That is why none of them could dazzle their ways of wanting for me either, as my mental shield stopped them from doing so. After I had told Jacob this, I told him he should tell you these things, as it is necessary for you to know so you know when things goes haywire or wrong in some ways, but it seems he hasn't done so." Sam, Paul and Jared all shook their heads, so did Quill and Embry, but it was Seth who said, "It is for your so-called feelings for my imprint and mate, you didn't want the others to know these things, for you wanted so badly to have Bella for your own selfishness and so-called love you may have for her. When you know nothing what love is about either. Never have either, as you never have dated anyone to see where it would go. Both Bella and I have done so in our recent past, and both have agreed that the ones we dated was not the one for us, and now we are imprinted and mated on, we are off limits, so any feelings you might have for my Bella will stop here and now, for you are not allowed to steal another's mate for your own selfishness whatsoever, for you know what the punishment of even trying to do so is, Jacob." Jacob just sat there in shock of him finding out the why he hadn't told the others. Both Bella and Seth shook their heads at this, as Bella told him, "I never liked you in that way even before Seth imprinted on me and you knew it all along, but no, what Jack? Oh boy once he gets no matter WHO gets hurt in the way, are what I want for my life, and that is not you at all, never will be either. I rather want to be with Seth, WHO will treat me as a human and ot a toy or whatever you want to use me as, fucking bastard son of a bitch. Grow the fuck up before you try to find love on your own instead of listening on what your father and my own father wants to happen, for it will never happen, okay? Never." All of them was shocked of her continued yelling, then she apologized as she knew the yelling hurt their ears, and they all just smiled hearing her selfness at this point still there. Seth just rubbed her back for now. Paul and Quill Jr. both just clapped and told, "I told you she would snap at you someday, seems that day came today, well done, Bells." Bella just shook her head at Quill Jr. And said, well, he needs get the wake-up call before he gets hurt over anything that won't happen either. I don't love him, never did before today, and never will either. Sam nodded at this, as he said, well, now it is just to tell the elders of the events tonight and Victoria issue is about. Bella nodded pleased at this, while Jacob glared hatefully and angrily at her and Seth still, as Sam said. Jacob, you will stop your hatred, selfishness and anger at Bella and Seth. They are not at fault of this mess, that is on you and only you, boy, as I just got your alpha blood stripped as you told me that you are not ready and clearly never will be either, so I did right of stripping that power of yourself, when you told me you were not ready to take over, so for now, I will be the only alpha. And when I am ready either Embry, Paul or Quill Jr. will take over when they feel ready as they are next in line. Those three nodded their heads at this, as they knew about this. While Seth and Leah felt only relief of knowing this, while Jacob just huffed and wrapped his arms across his chest in childish manner. So after that was said, they went over to the elders' meeting house, and knocked on the door. Waiting for the call of, come in, was being heard. As soon they heard that, Sam opened the doors to the house of where the elders were in a meeting, and Charlie too was there. As he glared at Bella and Seth or more at Seth, but he had anger when looking at his dog there standing, holding hands with Seth, while the two mentioned ignored his looks for now. Sam then addressed Old Quill. Old Quill, elders, my father and mother who are here tonight, we have some issues within the pack as well other issues outside of the pack. And those are what, son? Joshua said to his son. While Old Quill nodded his thanks for the question, as Sam proceeded to tell them everything, and when he was done, Charlie finally exploded in his anger and disbelief. Isabella Marie, we are going home and I will take your ass to the mental hospital, for nothing of these things are true. My godson is not a fucking werewolf or shapeshifter, none of them are, for they all are crazy, lunatics and need help now. Bella gasped, and held on to Seth in fear of his tail, while Sam said. You want proof, Chief Swan, that nothing we talk about is nothing but lies. Very well then, Paul, Seth, let's show him. Bella went to Leah, who wrapped a gentle arm around her little brother's mate, and Seth smiled before he with Paul and Sam showed Charlie their forms, and when they exploded into their forms. Bella was ready with some clothes for them to take soon after that, and Charlie passed out after seeing this. Most of them rolled their eyes at his reaction to seeing the wolves form. Seth went over to Bella's side, and she gave him the clothes for each of the boys shifted, and they went behind a tree each, and came out humans again, and Bella went back to Seth's side and he just smiled while holding her hand again. While all waited for Charlie to come back awake again. After few moments, he started to stir around and look around him for now. After a few minutes, he sat up and said, what the fuck was that all about? What the fuck are you guys? Bella rolled her eyes, standing in Seth's arms, while the others not used or not knowing he could swear looked rather shocked of his questions, but it was Joshua said. I told you they would show you the bloody truth about our stories, Charlie, and now that you know about it, you are not allowed to spill it to anyone outside of the tribe. Not even your ex-wife can know about it either. Bella blushed, as she said. I accidentally told her. She doesn't believe me or in them either, as she felt it as just some fairy tales, so I let her believe that for now. Making some of them chuckle at her words and her reaction to telling them, while Charlie looked furious at this point, as Bella said to him. And that is also for not telling her about what the Cullens are either. Dad, you are to let her believe what I accidentally told her back when I was around 12 and stopped my visits to hear back then, are just fairy tales. You other hand, are hereby forbidden to tell anyone outside the tribe and the Cullen Coven about what they all are to other humans, as they kept for a reason, and that reason is for not letting the Volturi know as. They will force you to either be changed or die for your crimes. I am saved from that fate, as I am mated completely to Seth now, as he is my one true love and true mate, your godson has no chance whatsoever on me. Never had one either for that matter before and after everything that has happened tonight. Now it is your choice to make if you are going to stick around or take the coward's route out and disown your own dog there. For some fucked up reasons I don't even know where they even came from. Everyone was shocked of her tale, while Seth bent down and the two shared a very passionate, happy first kiss together. While most cheered, Jacob glared hatefully, so did Charlie and Billy. Charlie said after the two were done. Are you two done now with showing off, right? You are disowned, as you are no dog there of mine. Never was either, as I know Renee cheated her ass on myself back then, I don't know who she slept with, but it was not me, as we never did it either, that was not the reason behind our marriage either. As we were fucking set up by our parents to marry, then have sex on first night, but Renee too scaredy cat didn't want us to do so we never consummated the deal between us. But months later, she came to me and said she was pregnant, and I told her to get the fuck out of my house and go to the one she slept with to let that man or bastard take her virginity of her, and she couldn't. She told me for the man was a married man and she gotten him drunk off his ass too, so he wouldn't remember a thing of what they had done in her fucked up mind. And that man was also 10 years older than herself. Everyone was shocked, as Bella then nodded, said, "Thank you for telling me the truth, that Renee refused to tell me back then, when I asked about why I didn't have the same skin color like you or mom has. Which is whiter than normally white people has. It makes me wonder who she slept with then. Oh well, I will find out somehow. For you never have been a great father figure. As you tried to force that godson of yours on me so many times, that I had enough of telling you that I will never love Jacob Black in that way, for I hate him and yourself with passion." Charlie just stood up and then left the building in anger and shame, while Bella just shook her head at this, as Seth said, "Well, you said it, baby." He needed to know the truth finally. Bella nodded into his chest, as he held her there for now. Others just smiled at the sight. Billy huffed as he said, "You know that can be regretted, Bella, with him disowning you if you take my son." Bella rolled her eyes, said, "I will never be with your son, Billy. As he is not my mate and never will be either. You, Charlie, and Jacob himself needs to fucking let go of those dreams and fucking move on and grow the fuck up already. Seth is mine, like I am his. And always will be." And with that, Billy with Jacob in tow left in shameful anger the house, while old Quill said, "I know who your real father is, Isabella, my son. Junior's father told me before he died that he had made a drunken mistake. He couldn't remember a lot of it, but he felt guilty that he might be father to someone who he didn't know of or who he slept with, but he told Joy about it as well. And she took it in stride as she knew he was not at fault on that matter." Bella nodded and shocked of what he said, as Joy said, "I know you are my Quill's dog there, always have, as I could see him in you. Unlike Quill Jr., who is more like myself, being blunt and the funny one, my Quill was more serious and more closed up as person. You could say he used to be very shy and insecure man before we met and fell in love, and myself being so open, he got that part more as time came on for us two married and having Junior." Quill Jr. said, "I always felt this bond towards you, from the moment we met. It was like," Bella took over, said, "it was like we are brother and sister, in a way." "Yes, I agree." Bella then gave some of her blood and saliva for testing it to see if she was an Ateria dogther of Quill's father and Renee. It would take some weeks to get the answers. In meantime, she took the name as Ateria, and changed her name to be Isabella Molly Ateria, to honor old Quill's wife, Molly, who used to be a swan before their marriage. Seth just smiled at this, while the others just smiled and accepted this name change, and Bella was to move in with the Ateria if she wanted to, or to Seth's place. She chose Seth's place and the two were happily accepted to do so, but Bella would still come by her family's house and see them once or twice a week, which they all loved to hear. Now it was just a time question of who she is, despite feeling that it all was true, and that she was an Ateria, and then also to see if the Cullens shows up too, as they were known not too able to stay for too long away from her either. After few weeks, the letter came in the post, and the disowning was officially done a week earlier by Charlie sending all her things to Seth's house with help of Jacob reluctantly helping him out with it, and the letter that came, she ran over to the Yuli's house with it in her hand, as the pack was having their meeting, when she came rushing in with it in her hand and gasping for air. Seth stood up, said, "Baby, everything okay?" Bella just said after taking some breath and the water from Emily. "The resultat is in, babe. My DNA answer." At that why all gasped. Then Emily led her over to a chair next to Seth, who wrapped an arm around, said, "No matter, you are still an Ateria and soon to be Clearwater, baby." At that most gasped of his speech, N.D. wanted to ask, but before they could, Bella ripped the envelope up and read as the elders, including her new mother and grandfather. "Dear Isabella Molly Ateria, your resultats are in, and you are 99.998% dogther of Quill Andrew Ateria and Renee Marie Dwyer. Congratulations of finding out the truth about your parentage and heritage. Yours truly, the DNA Family Unit." Bella just smiled relieved, just like her brother, mother and grandfather, while Seth kissed her softly, as he said, "See, I told you we're one of the Aterias, baby." Bella just smiled as she was then also welcomed in the family and tribe as whole. As the ceremony of the rest of the tribe would know at next bonfire that she was confirmed Ateria dogther. Then Joy said, "What did Seth mean with you being a Clearwater to be, Bells?" Bella blushed, then Seth said. I asked her hand in marriage, after I had asked your father-in-law and your son of her hand in marriage few weeks ago. And, Bella took her left hand up, said. And I clearly said 1,000 times yes. I do love Seth more than anything, while we go fast in our relationship, but these weeks alone, we have spent so much time together that we felt we know each other. That well we trust each other enough to make this step now too. And both Joy and Old Quill hugged her and Seth, while the others cheered happily for the two. Well, Billy and Jacob just huffed at this, but said nothing. Charlie was nowhere to be seen, as he was being closely monitored so he didn't tell anyone of their secrets. As they celebrated this, Leah, who had been out on a run around the perimeter, came running in and shouting. The Cullens are back, those fuckers are back. Sorry Mom for swearing too. Sue just chuckled as she said. It is all right in this situation, where did you see those fuckers? Most chuckled at her, while Leah said, at the border, standing around looking around there. Making Sam nodded at this, as he said. Well then, Bells, you come with us there, as they are for you. We suspect and they are to get a surprise or two now then. Bella smirked at this, as they all walked outside, and Bella took Seth's clothes from him, and held them in her arms while she went up on his back after he laid down for her. And off they were to the treaty line. So all of them took off for the treaty line, as the Cullens had come back to town, for some unknown reason, as Edward had told Bella when he broke her and their relationship up for good that they wouldn't be back. So that promise on his end, was now broken too, like she thought it would be. As soon they all had come nearby the line of the treaty were set. They all shifted back to humans. Seth took Bella's hand in his, and the two with the others arrived the line together, although Bella and Seth stood hidden for now from being sighted by the Cullens. Sam said after they had stopped at their side. So you are back, for what? After all Edward told Isabella when he broke up with her and broke her completely by his cruel words, he would not be back. That none of you would be back, seems that you have broken that promise, leeches. Bella told me everything when I found her that night, or should I say the next morning around 5 a.m. Frozen to the bones and completely out of it due to being dehydrated and flu-like symptoms from the cold rain that fell that night. Most of them were shocked to hear this. Rosalie glared at fully at this point at some point near her, while Edward stood in shamed manner, like he thought he would be forgiven or something by Bella if she was here, which they didn't know she was here, and with Seth, who just held her hand in his still. She snuggled up to him, and he wrapped an arm around her for now. Carlisle looked furious at this, but still said, "We are back for my dog there. Alice told us that Bella had disappeared from her visions, and she was worried that meant that Bella is dead." Bella rolled her eyes, as Sam said, "I can tell you that Bella is very much alive, although the time AF. Tear Edward leaving as well yourself leaving made her become a zombie for 4 months, before she finally started to get back on her feet and move forward on her own way of life. She and Jacob hung around, until the day Jacob became one of us. That was when she started hang out with Seth, Embry, Quill and few more people around the reservation, as she felt nothing for the human friends back at Forks as. You seem to isolate her too much to feel they are really friends to her anymore. Bella is still around us all, as she found out our secret due to slapping Paul that made him pissed off enough and shift into his form. And first words she said, so those stories that Jacob told me on that beach day was also true. Oh hell. And then she was taken back to my and Emily's house, while Paul and Jacob with myself fought it out that day. But Bella told him that day few other things that we didn't learn until few weeks ago by Bella herself yelling it out on Jacob that he had not told us the things that was going on around here. What things and where is my Bella? Edward sighed, as Seth growled at that, while Bella rolled her eyes, as Sam said. She is no longer your Bella, leech, as you broke up with her. And she made sure it was permanently when she woke up and found the hidden things you tried to hide under her floorboards and burned it all to nothing but ashes. But the things were Victoria and Laurent, fuckers. At that most of them gasped of hearing those names, as they heard Bella from a distance. Oh, seems that a sword tried to find her, when he is worst on tracking anyone or anything really. Victoria and Laurent was all the long around Forks this time. Laurent is dead, but Victoria bitch is still out there to mate for mate, when I was never that asshole's mate, as he wouldn't be a BLE to even hurt me like the way he did that day nor able to leave me for more 5 feet. Isn't that right, Carlisle? When I asked about your mating is like, then it means that I am not that childish asshole's mate, and never was either. Just his bloody singer. Most looked around, while Edward looked really hurt by her words about him, while the rest of the Cullens gasped of what she said, and tried to find where she was. But none of them could smell her scent, as it had changed to smell more like Seth's scent of pine and earth. Bella stood by Seth's side, when the pack moved away, and their BEF. Or the Cullens, they saw her standing next to a man who they knew was not Jacob, so most of them frowned at the sight, while Edward had the audacity say, "Love, you are here, why did you say those things, and we are not broken up for good." "Now I am back." Bella rolled her eyes, as she then said, "I am not sorry to call you out on those words I just said, Edward, and do not call me love, as I was never your love. Only a fucking toy to you and Alice to do whatever fuck you wanted over my wants and needs, that is not love, fucker. But I am here to tell you that, I am engaged to marry Seth here next to me, as he is my true love and mate. As of 4 weeks ago, he imprinted on me, and you know the rules and laws about it, as the original pack you got to meet back then told you that they're mates and foot. Your wolves mates are off limits to you all. So I am off limit, now that I have chosen to marry my Seth, and never will go back to you nor become a vampire, for that is not what I want anymore. I want to be alive as human. And have children and just be happy with my Seth, who accept me for who I am and not for what I could become if I was to be yours again, which would be a fucking doll, and sub me. SSIVE moron with no control of my own decisions and choices to whatever fuck I want over you and Alice wants to. Alice and you are fucked up in your heads, fucker." Many were shocked of her words, and Edward stood in shocked hurt and anger of what she said, while Alice stood vibrating in anger of what Bella told them too, while the rest of the Cullens stood in shock of what she had told them so far. As she continued, "I am only here to see you agree on taking out Victoria, but as soon she is gone, I want you all to leave this area for good, as you are the cause of my Seth and the others in the pack to shift into their wolves in first place, as you are the danger here despite your food choices. They see you as fucking threat to our people. And also, me being off limits is also for I recently found out that my real father is not Charlie Swan, but Quill Ateria, same father to Quill Jr. here, and old Quill's son. So I am now known as Isabella Molly Ateria, soon to be a Clearwater, as Seth and I plan to be married in few weeks in very small gathering, as neither likes the attention nor that it will be over the top expensive wedding. As neither of us has the money nor want it to be like that at all." Most of the Cullens were shocked of this being said, then Bella and Seth left the area so the rest of the pack could deal with them, as Seth and Bella was off to go cake tasting and fix anything else that was not done yet for their upcoming wedding day. She flipped the finger at the Cullens before she took off on Seth's back and off they were. After they had left the area to go cake testing and deal with other things, the pack and the Cullens spoke on what to do next in the situation with Victoria bitch. And they agreed on meeting next day around same time as today and Bella Seth WOU. LDB here despite anyone's feelings about her being there, it had to do with her too after all. And the Cullens left soon after that, feeling lost and confused of everything that had been told so far. While the pack split up and went to their own homes, and spent some time with families. Next day at around same time of another meeting with the Cullens, Bella and Seth came together. Well, Bella was on Seth's back and all stared in small shock of seeing this sight before them, as Seth went down onto his stomach, as Bella smiled, said, "Go ahead, babe, I have your clothes in here." And she pulled out the clothes for him. And he went behind a tree, and only showed his head around it, and reached out and took the clothes out of her hands, as she said, shocking them all. "Don't worry, I have seen your nakedness before today, babe." At that they heard him chuckle, as he said, "I know you have, but the others have not, and I am not shy anymore, but you are to be my wife and I love you more than anything." Bella just smiled, as he came out from behind the tree in the clothes she gave him few minutes earlier, and he pulled her into his arms, and she just relaxed in them, and held onto him for now. The Cullens had heard the last bits of their conversation and were shocked too of the subject. Soon after Sam took over the conversation, and Bella stood in Seth's arms for now and listening in on what was being talked about so far in the meeting. After the Cullens had agreed to help out with Victoria reluctantly, they asked if they could talk to Bella and alone, which Bella snorted out loud, and said, "You can get to talk to me. But my Seth stays here with me, as I do not trust any of you to take me away for that child still thinks I am his mate, when I never was his, as it would not be posy. BLE for him to even leave in that coward's way nor to Seth imprinting on me. I chose Seth, over that childish moronic, prudish virgin boy, as I love my Seth more than I ever thought I would do. He is my choice and love. And I love to be his mate, as he lets me be me, not some plastic toy or whatever you and Alice seem to see me as Alice forcefully would treat me as a Barbie doll than a fucking human being. And Edward, you are not my fucking father, you were supposed to act like a boyfriend does, not like a fucking father and coward. Seth just held her smiling hearing those words again. She would choose him over that child meant a lot to him to hear all over again. You will leave this area and state for good after we are done with Victoria, if any of you dare to go to the Volturi's. As they are most feared even in your own cowardice, family, when you are coven of vampires. Deal with being called that, as you will be known as such from now on. I am not your mate, Edward, never was. Despite what Alice over there might have seen in her fucked up visions about me when I first arrived to Forks. But I am officially known as Ateria Girl now that I have officially changed my name to it. And Charlie has no control or no contact with me or anyone else except for Jacob and Billy Black still to this day. When I see him I ignore that man who tried to force me together with another childish moron that Jacob Black is. Just like Edward is. A child and virgin prude. Something I am not anymore either, as Seth and I made the choice together to make love and take each other's virginities few weeks ago. And we are getting married in few weeks in very small venue, and no, none of you are welcome to come or try to sabotage it in any ways, as it will be on our tribal grounds, where none of you are even welcome. If seen or heard on the grounds the day of our wedding, no matter what your other covenmates says, you will be put to death. And that is a promise, not just a threat, Carlisle. Why? Oh, you are the supposed leader of your coven, then fucking act like one for once, and punish the others when they have done wrong, which those two you claim to call perfect, precious son dog there who see. And do anything wrong, when they have done so much wrong, when it came to myself, and you are fucking coward to even raise your voice and tell them enough. What fucking fucked up coven and so-called leaders you are, Carlisle. That child is no adult and never will be either one. Same goes with Alice, as neither were 18 or above when changed into a leech like you all are. You are 23 and Renesmee is 26 in human years. And neither has been a father or mother figure, so it is no surprise you don't know a thing of how to act like one, as you never been one in your human form. And never learned how to discipline and how to raise a child. Especially troubled children as those two are. Same with Rosalie and her fucked up past of thinking selfishly of how beautiful she is and how much she wants to be a mother, when she would never fit as one. As she is too selfish and too vain and too bitchy to even know how to be one in first place. So I got in contact with a friend of mine in the child social services. And got you all blacklisted of ever adopting a human child in your care, as your file says you are not fit as a parent as neither of you knows how to even raise a child, let alone a human. And then what when they find out your secret? What then would you force them to be changed to see if they may be that childish asshole's new mate when his mate most likely is a fucking vampire with different morals and choices than his own fucked up morals and timeline thinkings? No one is a fucking virgin to the day they get married to this day, fucker, and you need to fucking let that go and get that straight. Ick high up in your ass out of there and fucking be normal as they are to this day, as everyone will just think what a weirdo you are to stay virgin until your wedding day is just fucked up. Many were shocked of her long-winded speech. As Alice and Edward glared at her hatefully, while Carlisle hung his head in shame and anger, Rosalie was seething of what Bella talked about while the rest of the Cullens pack just stood in sheer shock of what being revealed so far. Bella then turned to Seth, who just held her into his arms for now, and she stayed there. Then the two took off leaving the Cullens behind at the treaty line. And the rest of their pack had already gone back home, so it was just the two of them left there with them for now. After few weeks of nothing but some swirling rumors around Forks and La Push, Seth and Bella decided to come out as married to the two towns in a towns meeting between the two in Forks instead, as the Cullens weren't even allowed to La Push, so it had to be done in Forks instead. So everyone sat around wondering what was going on, why were they even in this mandatorial meeting, and their children too. But before anyone could ask, the back doors opened with slight bang as they hit the walls when they went up, and everyone jumped at it, but there in the doorway was Bella Swan and this very much taller man next to her, and everyone stared at the two. Charlie kept silent for now. But he did glared at the two, while the two walked up towards the stand, and stood holding hands, which caused the younger ones, the same ones she had gone to school with, gasped of the sight of their hand-holding, and Edward with Alice glared at this too. Jessica just couldn't help herself, so she stood up and asked, "What is going on here? Why is Bella and who is that sexy hunk next to her?" At that some laughed at her, while her mother said, "Jessica, be quiet and stop saying stuff like that." Bella rolled her eyes, then she looked over to the said sexy hunk, who gave a huge grin at her. Then he was the one to say to answer Jessica's question, "You must be the gossiper of two girls, Jessica and Lauren. I believe Bella said your names were." Anyways, thanks for the compliment. But I am very happily married, and that is to this gorgeously, sexy woman next to me, Bella Clearwater née Swan. Most gasped and went wide-eyed at this, and most of the female adults stared at her belly area, as if they were looking for a baby bump or something. Bella just rolled her eyes, as she then clapped her hands together to make them jump and stop there staring at her belly area for now, and said, I am not pregnant, but we are very happily married since about 2 weeks now, and it was not a fucking shotgun wedding either, as we got married after we both love each other more than anything. And if I was pregnant before or now, then the baby would be a welcomed gift into our married life, as we wouldn't just marry for a baby is on its way. It is not how love works or how you should dictate your and your children's life, as they are to choose for themselves. If they want to sleep around, then that's their choice to do so, but teach them to cover it up for fuck's sake. Let's stop the teenage marriages and pregnancies altogether until they are in the college years or beyond those years even. For those marriage and pregnancies just end in tears and divorce, just low. Okay, what happened to my father and mother? They got divorced within a year of their forced marriage just for my mother was expecting me as a 17-year-old, that is not me, and never will be either. I am 19 now, and I am very happily married to my love of my life, as Seth is the one for me, and always will be. None else holds that light or my heart in same way. Many were shocked to hear this speech and that she swore even. Seth chuckled beside her as he knew she could swear whenever she felt the need to get the message through. As Lauren said, and why weren't we then invited to your so-called wedding? If it even happened or is real deal. Bella frowned angrily at her, while Seth tried to keep cool, but he said, our wedding did take place, and it happened on the first beach of La Push, 2 weeks ago. And why should you be invited to our wedding? You have done nothing but been cruel and hateful towards my wife since her arrival to the school. Might just be for the boys around you got interested in her. But she stood her ground and told them off before anything. You are the cowards of being such gossip whore queen. After all, we know what you and Jessica over there been up to. After all, we can. How the persons you been with all the while you seems to date Mike Newton and Tyler Crowley. At least they have morals. Have you any left or just fuck them away? Many were wide-eyed at this point. The two girls were red-faced of shame and anger of being outed in that way, while Tyler and Mike stared at the two girls with shock and somewhat hurt too. The girls' parents looked shocked of hearing what their girls been up to, and kept asking what was Seth talking about, and they tried to keep it down, but Seth said again to the parents of the two girls, your precious daughters have been not only the gossip queen, and thrives on telling fake stories about people behind their backs even, but also had sex with a lot of guys around town of both Forks and La Push, as few of them are friends of mine back in La Push, who had nothing against having sex as it is normal to have it before marriages, but they at least know how to wrap it up and be careful. But those girls also talked shit behind my wife's back. When Edward Cullen did his cruel leaving back last year. She heard it all, bitches, and you are so wrong in what you spoke of. First of all, my wife, unlike you girls, was a virgin until a month ago. 2 weeks before our wedding day. And she did not sleep with Edward, for he is the biggest prude you could even find, as he only wants to have sex after marriage is done. That is fucked up. As none of us all youths are virgins nowadays either, but to have sex just for you have a serious addiction to it, that is really wrong, for it could cause damage and irreversible injuries to your reproductive systems. As unprotected sex can lead to being infertile and even death of contracting HIV/AIDS. This is learned in schools today, so I suggest any of you who have had sex with these two underage girls to get checked out. And their parents to take the girls to be checked out too, as I don't think they have most careful and spread around a lot of diseases, as Paul LaHote, one of the boys they slept with after each other, contracted herpes from one of those girls. And he has gotten rid of it now, but back then it was hell on earth for him. He is at least very open and honest about his sex life, as most should be, otherwise who knows what you will get from the other one when having unprotected sex. Even protected sex can be. Many were shocked of this, as the said girls' fathers took them up by the arm and dragged them out of there to their cars to get the hospital to be checked over right this second. Tyler and Mike shared a look, then also with their other friends, and took off to be checked over as well. Which made their own parents looked rather pleased that they would be taken care of that too. As Mike's mother, Samantha said, first, thank you for telling us all these things, Bella dear. I know my son has not been easy on you since you arrived in town, and I apologize for that happening to you. And secondly, I am very happy to hear you are a married woman now, and Seth, you seem to be a perfect man for her as well. So congratulations, I say it from both myself and my husband here. At that her husband, Michael Sr., nodded happily his head and smiled widely, which made Bella smile back at the two. Others around town followed with their own congratulations, as Lauren's mom couldn't help to ask. "So when are you due then, Isabella?" Bella rolled her eyes, as she said. "Are you stupid like your dog? There seems to be you're just hard-headed. I am not pregnant, as we made love for a month ago and we were protected and still are, as neither wants to have a child already now, as we both are 19. And not ready for that part to happen, for neither of us wants to be teenage parents and be judged from the likes of yourself seem to be, just like Lauren and Jessica were to me in school too. After all they seems to thrive on hurting others and not think clearly on the consequences of what they have done themselves either. Is it a wonder why many more came forward about how much of a bully those two girls are when they have you as mother really, Mrs. Mallory?" Said woman just huffed angrily, then realized that her husband had dragged her dog there and her friend with her own father to the hospital. And everyone else looked non-sympathetically to the women of the said girls either. Bella and Seth then stepped down as it was just that they wanted to talk to the towns about, so they then left the building not listening on Charlie to get back there now. Few weeks after that town meeting, Seth and Bella was told by Lauren's dad who came down to their house, first to apologize for their behavior back at the meeting. And also to tell them that his daughter and Jessica both had been told of having contracted HIV/AIDS, as they had both diseases and that had devastated not only themselves of having it, but also their parents, who was furious and seriously hurt by their uncarefulness of being protected while having underage sex and that they kept going at it despite their diagnosis too. As most of their friends even exes were distancing themselves from the two girls, as they didn't feel they were even trustworthy with anything really. Bella was not really surprised by what he told them, but shocked that both girls had the two deadliest diseases and now the tracking of all men and boys they had slept with had to be contacted and tested for the diseases too, including Paul. But Paul was all clear from the HIV/AIDS and getting herpes by Jessica a year ago. Him being a shapeshifter had healed everything, but he still got regularly tested just for he wanted to be on safe side and not getting a girl either pregnant by himself or getting disease from himself or onto himself ever again, for the herpes was horrid to have even. Seth had been pissed at first, but he took the apology of said man to his heart, as he could see how much his own wife and dog there had been like to him, and he was now finally awakened to the full scope of truth and needed help to how to move on from this now. And Seth and Bella were both more than happy to try and help him out with anything really, as they both felt that he had done nothing wrong in anything. Meanwhile, Jessica and Lauren was forcefully taken to a sex-addictive clinic to get the help they both desperately needed, both with medication for rest of their life and know what was going to be their lives from this moment on, and be removed from any toxic people in their lives, except for their now not so clueless fathers to see and visit them whenever they wanted to. But not yet, as the girls clearly needed to be isolated and away from everyone in their life. Their boyfriends at the time of the revelations had also broken up with them for good, as they too had been tested and luckily not one of them had gotten contracted with anything from the girls, as they never had slept with them, at least not knowingly, but the tests showed them being virgins still, so that made the two boys happy knowing that they still were. Mike and Tyler went down with hung heads and apologized to Bella in person, and she accepted their apologizes, but it would take time to trust them again, and they both agreed on that too. The Cullens on other hand still tried to get in contact with Bella in any shape and form they could, with her ringing her phone in the middle of the night, waking Seth up too by it, or trying when she was out to doin' grocery shopping to abduct her away to talk to her more privately, but after one attempt, she always had Seth with her or one of her family members there with her, so they never were able to talk to her privately. Edward still gave her any longing looks in public, and Bella was frankly getting tired of this behavior of all the Cullens, not only Edward now. Seth was seething in silent anger of their behavior too. So was most of the pack doing. Few weeks later, Seth and Bella had enough of the Cullens and their tries to get Bella alone or wake them up in the middle of the nights with disturbing phone calls. That made their sleep not so good lately, and Sam started to take notice of it in Seth, when he was phased in, and had his patrol with both himself and others, so one day he came over to the young Clearwater's house and knocked on the door, and the door opened to let him see a very tired Bella at the door, and he looked concerned just by that look on her face and how she was trying too hard to stay awake middle of the day, so he said, "May I come in, Bella, Seth?" At that she nodded, while yawning away after apologizing for it, and let him inside. As soon he had sat down, he said, "Okay, enough, what is going on here? Why are you both so tired all the times?" At that both shared a look, as Bella's lip wobbled, as Seth took her hand in his, and said. For those fucking Cullens won't stop their doings. They keep calling us during our night when we are both to sleep, but their calls both disrupts our sleep and makes up not able to sleep again for the words they can hurl in the phone are horrible, Sam. We just don't know to do, we are at wit's end, and Bella's condition is getting also too much for her now. What condition is Bella in, and we can tell the rest of the pack and elders about this issue. Bella said, I am pregnant, Sam, I am in my 4th month, and with these idiots calling me on my phone during the nights when I am to have my restful sleep so the baby and I both will have a good pregnancy. As the first trimester or 3 months were hell on me, with me puking and going in to get hydrated and medication for the nauseas. I still take those pills as with my sleep'll. SS nights of almost no sleep I get more easily now souse during the days. Sam smiled, then said, I am happy to hear you are carrying a baby, Bells, for we all know how great mother you will be, like S. Ev you are going to be a great father too. At that both of them smiled at him, as he then held his hand out, and Bella gave him her phone, as he said. Let me turn it off, if anyone wants to speak with you through phone. They have to call Seth's or us others. You both need your sleep desperately and it being off hopefully you will get it now, but the issue I will bring up myself to the elders and pack. You don't need to be there for it, as I recorded it on my phone just in case of need of doing so. So Seth, you have the next week off from patrol and pack stuff. Congratulations again on your first baby. Does anyone else know besides me? Seth said, my mom and sister knows, but they keep it secret as we had to tell them during first trimester when Bella was so ill, but now it is safe to tell others at least. So they with old Quill who guessed it and Joy of course knows about it. Sam nodded his head, smiling, as he said, I will tell my parents so they can come over and help you out with anything you feel you have neglected to do due to your morning sickness and now this sleep deprivation. Making the two smile at him, and thanked him profusely, as he just told them to sleep it often. Show themselves when they are fully rested again. Then he left for his parents' house, and when he heard his dad say come on in, Sam, he walked in and saw both his parents there with Jonah and Sue there. He smiled slightly, then he said, Mom, Dad, you are needed at the young Clearwater's house, as they need our help with things from now on. Why what's going on Sam? And Sam said, due to Bella's condition at this moment, the Cullens are harassing her with nighttime phone calls which made the two not able to sleep enough or able to go back to sleep after those rather disturbing phone calls from Edward and Alice. I just came from their house and my god they look horrible, like really horrible. What condition are you speaking of that Bella is in right now, son? His dad asked, while Sue and Allison shared a look. While Jonah looked at first confused then realized it and sat up straighter with a seriously angry look on his face, as Sam said. She is pregnant in her 4th month now, only Sue, Leah and old Quill the latter one guessed it for Seth and Bella being with child. But first trimester was horrid for Bella, as she was in and out of the hospital for being so dehydrated and sick at all time. The females cheered so did the men, then Jonah said angrily. Are you telling us that those two youngest Cullens are calling Bella's phone in the middle night and being rather disturbing enough to keep them awake on days on end? Doesn't they realize what it can do to someone's body and mind if you are to be awake for days without any sleep at all? And now that Bella is pregnant it is even more important that she gets that sleep she needs. Making Sam nod his head, at that they all stood and walked over to old Quill's house together. When they knocked on the door, Quill Jr. opened and said, Oh, come on in. I am on my way out to go grocery shopping now, Mom. Making Joy smile at her son's helpfulness, and he walked off to do so, while they all walked into the house and found old Quill on a couch, and he said, Oh hello, what brings you all here? And Sam explained it, as old Quill said, Did you take Bella's phone with you, Sam? And yes, I guess her pregnancy before she got it confirmed at the doctor's office days later. And I am very happy for them indeed. But this is serious matter, Sam. At that Sam nodded as he played up the recording and all gasped of hearing the yawns and how tired both Bella and Seth sounded on the tape. Then we need to call them in for a meeting in 30 at the treaty line. Bella and Seth are most likely asleep so let them be for now. They can be told later what happened and what will happen next from now on. We need to deal with them now. Making most of them nodded, as Allison said, Joy, myself and Sue can stay back here and cook up a storm with food for everyone. If Seth and Bella wants to join in then they may of course do so also. Otherwise we can carry some food later, Josh, when we go over to sit there for the night. Josh nodded with a smile at this, while others agreed on that. As Sam then took his phone up and called on Dr. Leach and asked for a meeting at Treaty Line in 30 minutes, and all of them were to be there too. No exceptions either. After that they went split ways, and Sam with the pack after he howled on them to come quickly nearby old Quill's house. They all were confused and worried of what it might be, even more so when Leah thought to Sam. "So they told you then about what's going on then, Sam?" At that he confirmed it, while the others including Jacob was confused of what the two were talking about. As soon all had joined him at the place of choice. He then proceeded to tell them everything that was going on. When he was done, Leah growled angrily, as she said, "Those little fuckers won't be sorry when I am done with them. They could seriously cause Bella to miscarry, and it is more dangerous as time of a pregnancy goes on to happen. But you took her phone away from her for now, Sam." "Yes I did, as I also gav. Set a week off from being on patrol and do these pack things as both need their sleep badly, Leah." Both were yawning like crazy and just not really able to talk or even keep eyes open while talking to me. He showed them what he meant. And most were pissed off at this, and Jacob was pissed that Bella now was pregnant with Seth's baby and not his, but he kept that secret for himself for now. "Let's go and see those fucking leeches. I say," Paul said angrily, as he looked at Bella as a sister to himself nowadays, and most knew she saw him back as a brother to her too. So after the pack arrived, at the site of the meeting with Cullens was to be, they all stood around angrily and was very agitated from what they had learned so far about what was going on. So when the Cullens, all of them, arrived, Sam took no more shit. And asked straight out, "What the hell are your two youngest doing to Seth and Bella? Are they going to get Bella to miscarry her and Seth's child?" Many of them looked shocked, while the two who had been doing their phone calls looked afraid and angry at the same time, while Carlisle said calmly, "What is going on here? Why are you yelling at us?" As Leah said angrily, "Oh, so your two youngest leeches age-wise haven't told you all what they are up to during the night time, then? Are they such cowards to come forward with what they are trying to do with Bella and Seth?" At that both looked at her with anger, and Carlisle and the rest looked confused of this, as Paul said, "Well, let me tell then, those two fuckers have been calling to Bella during the middle of the nights. And spoke to both her and Seth in a very creepy, disturbing voices, that then made the two not able to fall back to sleep again, until daybreak, and be very tired and not able to do their own work. And also, like Sam just yelled, Bella is also pregnant with their first child, and her sleepless nights are affecting both her and their unborn child, you little fucking creeps and assholes." Many of them looked shocked, as Alice and Edward didn't look ashamed but furious, as Paul continued. "As right now, the two are getting their sleep back on track, and the baby is also safer than normal. For Sam took Bella's phone and turned it off for her sake, and for Seth's sake too, so no more calls will be forwarded to either of them, as you don't have Seth's phone number. Your nights of disrupting and disturbing their sleep is over now, as you are not going to be able after today, to call her phone, for we will block your numbers if Sam hasn't already done so. Then it means all of your phone numbers that little shit over there placed in her phone before she got imprinted on and now married with Seth, her one true love and mate." Many of the Cullens looked shocked of what Paul had revealed, while the two morons stood there still not even sorry for what they had been doing, but also angry to hear they would never after today to be able to call Bella again. Sam took Bella's phone out and both erased and blocked the whole Cullen family's phone numbers of Bella's phone and only kept the pack and few more people's numbers in it for now. Carlisle said, "I didn't know this was going on, but it has to be innocent though. For Alice and Edward would never do something like that." At that Sam took out a device and all of a sudden they all heard first Alice's voice then Edward's voice on it, and what being said was the proof enough of what the two been up to during the night times. Carlisle looked shocked, but also what to do next. "They are my favorite children. If I do this punishment then what will others think of me or as his family?" But he had no choice now that he heard this, and Rosalie said snidely, "So Bella is pregnant?" That was quickly. Sam gave her a death glare, as he said, and you are not only in love with your soulmate, then children are a welcomed gift to yourselves, as they bring you joy and more love with happiness, something you don't even know a single thing about, leech bitchy girl. Seth and Bella wasn't even trying for one, but they welcome it and will love it like nothing else, and when siblings join them, then they will not be raised like you all been by Carlisle and Esme. Being spoiled brats and not being punished for anything that is wrong to do, like forcing someone to what your two youngest siblings have tried to do with Bella and Seth, which ends today." Making the Cullens look shocked of his speech, as Sam then turned to Carlisle. "You have 72 hours to correct Alice and Edward from what they have been up with, punishing them with right punish. meant and not a slap on their wrists and let them go back to their atrocious, childish and bratty behavior, that ends today or you are going to be after 72 hours forced out of the state as whole and blah. Seek listed from ever coming back to this state and town of Forks forever. If Carlisle is not able, I will call on the Volturi's as we found out what their phone number is and we unlike you cowards that you are. We'll tell them everything that has being on here and they will take the punishment away from your control, Carlisle, Esme, and make sure you won't be able to do anything else after that. I have their numbers in my phone and won't hesitate to call them no matter what after today. So 72 hours from now on to punish those moronic brats who doesn't know what boundaries are. All of the Cullens looked rather frightened now. As Quill said, and what Sam just told you, is not an empty threat or anything like it, but a promised threat to you all. Take it or leave as cowards you all are. And then Hey all went back to their own places in La Push not wanting to be around the Cullens anymore, and they had set the ultimatum for them to take or leave, but if they chose not to take it, then the Volturi would be on their asses in nanoseconds from now on. Sam wouldn't hesitate to call them anyway. As he pulled his phone up and then pressed for call the Volturi's castle in Volterra, Italy. Soon a female voice answered, said, "Welcome to Volterra Castle, who am I speaking with, and what is you need from the Volturi kings?" Sam then said, "I am Sam Yulee, a shapeshifter from La Push and Forks Pack. And I want to tell the Volturis of a crime that the Cullen Coven Pack has done to one of his shapeshifter and his wife and maid of life last few days." At that female gasped in shock of hearing this, and said she was going forward to Arrow, whom took on these cases of crimes of their vampires around the world most seriously. Sam nodded happily at that, as now a male voice. "This is Arrow Volturi, Sam. And I want to know what is going on there with the Cullen Coven Pack as you call them by, please." And so Sam told him or them, as Arrow's brother Kings also was there in background and could hear everything. As Keys only had one question to Sam. "Are you real werewolves, Samuel, or what kind of wolves are you?" At that Sam told him, "We are shapeshifters, it means we change with our tem. Per of anger and can control it with time, we don't need the full moon like real werewolves does, so there is no fear for either of you if you come by, as we know when to attack a vampire and not, and since you are now occupants of our tribe, we will not attack you if you are for a visitor to pick the Cullens up for their punishment by your own hands. I promise you that much." Keys was it? "Yes, my name is Keys. So Isabella told you what my story was about or?" "Yes, she did, and I promise no one else knows about your fear for those true monsters." "Thank you, and we will be there in 2 days then and help you out. As this is very serious matter, and the fact that Isabella is pregnant with her true mate's child, is something we don't take lightly as we view any new lives as precious ones. As babies are very precious to us all in our castle. As we only go for the criminals nowadays, and there is a lot of them here in Volterra and surrounding cities. Good to know at least. And thank you for doing this. See you all in 2 days at the treaty line we have with the Cullens when we need to meet them for any reasons. Most welcome, give our love and congratulations to the happy two. Oh we will, see you soon, Kings." And with that Sam hung up and smiling while walking into his house, and saw everyone except the two who most likely still sleeping off their lost sleep, and he told them that the Volturis would be here in 2 days and help them out with punishing the Cullens for once and all. Many of them looked shocked but also a bit worried. After 3 days, the Pack and the Cullens called each other to meet up again at the treaty line, not that the Cullens knew why yet, as Alice couldn't and hadn't seen any of the Volturi stuff nor that they were coming. So the Pack came before the Cullens, as they told the Cullens to come in an hour, so this way the Volturis could meet up with them and talk with them before the Cullens were to show up at the area. As soon they arrived, Marcus, who always has been the quiet one, only said, "Oh marvelous this is, Arrow, Keys, my dear brothers." At that both looked at him in shock as they hadn't heard him so animated and outspoken since Didym's death. Bella smiled hearing his very strong, but so soft voice too. As Arrow just smiled, said, "Good to hear your voice again, Marcus, dear brother of mine. Isn't that right, Keys?" At that Keys also nodded with slight smile with a small smirk on his lips. Marcus said, "All these bonds these people have with each other, and with the females in their life, it reminds me so of mine and Didym's bond. Just like you two's bonds with your mates, Athenadora and Sulpicia." Most smiled at this, as Arrow felt calm by hearing this part, and he turned to the Pack, said, "Oh I am so sorry, here we babbled on something else. Please forgive us. And don't worry, we fed ourselves on blood bags this time around." So we are well fed and ready to do what needs to be done. At that Sam and most of them nodded their heads, as Bella said. It is all right, I know how difficult it can be for a vampire to starve, whether it was by choice or someone else is forcing you to starve on what you crave to have to be new to. Red and ready for the next time you need to feed, and have that disrupted is nightmare. Even my friends and myself can agree on that part. If you are kept hungry, you get angry and annoyed with others and yourself in the end. Making many chuckles at this, as Keys said. What a good insight in our different lives, Miss Swan. At that Bella smiled, said, it is actually nowadays Mrs. Clearwater, as I got recently married to my Seth, who is my true mate in love. And we are also expecting our first of hopefully many more children. Making most of them smiled happily, as Arrow couldn't help himself and clap his hands together and give out a squeal of happiness. Bella and Seth just grinned at this sound, as the two were now so much well rested and ready for what lays ahead of them. Their baby was due, in good as well after a good lot of sleep for last 3 days since they told Sam of their issues. As Arrow then said, Sam, who are you of all the boys here? At that Sam came forward, said, I am the Sam that you spoke on the phone with King Arrow. And you know the whole situation now too. That is correct. I wish to ask Isabella and Seth what they want to happen with the Cullens, as it is them it is about today. Bella and Seth shared a look, as Seth said, I rather want them gone for good, but I know somewhat you collect those with gifts from their human state, so what Bella and I suggest that you do a check over on them. By either see if they really have a gift and what kind it is and take them far away from here, as it is known to our tribe, that your kind being here triggers the gene in us who are from bloodlines of Yuli, Black, Ateria, who were the original pack. We know who you speak of, Seth, as we have met the old one too, as they requested our help at some point in the past, as T. Hay had a similar problem to what you have today. But the reason they asked for us back then, was not for a girl who Edward or this Alice thinks is a mate to Edward, but that the pack had issues with rogue vampires. And needed our help to take them out before more of your people was killed. As we also know it was soon after what happened to Third Wife, as she was called by back then. Making most nodded, as they knew this too. As they read the history books and having one of the oldest in tribe, also helped a lot to tell the stories. Jacob frowned at this, as Keys said. You all should know that the one you imprint on will forever be your bondmate and true love match, as they are created to be yours in eternity or when your last breath is taken, for they are perfect for you and only you. Not anyone else will have that same love anymore, and if someone was to take someone else's wife or partner, it will result in their own death over being taken as their mate, as they believed they are in love with said person they tried to steal from its true mate. That was a law that I think Utlapayuli told us back then, that they were going change it for the future children of theirs, who gets to be like themselves. Protectors of their tribe. Utlapa wanted nothing of that sorts to happen any more than that happened back in their time, where a man could steal another man's wife just for they lusting and wanting them as their own. That is not how love works, isn't that right, my love? Keys, own mate, Athenadora came forward, most gasped of her true beauty, and said. That is correct, as I can feel the bonds a little different from what Marcus my brother of my husband, and that is I can for example see the true mate bond between those of you that have imprinted to those who thinks they are in love with a taken mate. You all were created for the true one in the pack, and those who were yours before that, will have to let go of them, for they are not made for you, as your true mates are. Made after what you are grown up with and believing in. For example, being in love to being infatuated with someone, is way different. You know when you are truly in love with the one who was made for you. As you look into their eyes and you just know by the futurist vision of your lives together, that is what your imprinting is about, to see who is the perfect mate for you, your temper and how you grew up like. For example, Isabella grew up with no parents of her own as she had to learn how to be selfless and how to take herself over what your parents tried to, and I know you lost a father early on, and I am sorry that you did so. But Seth, you grew up with the stories of your tribe and became the shy one of you and your sister over there. And I think your name is Leah, you need to let Sam go. For your mate is out there somewhere on your road of recovery. The issue with you and Sam is that you are related by blood, therefore you were not made for Sam as you share bloodlines, as your mother and his father are cousins. Making you two first cousins, and most know it is illegal unlike back in our times to be with a cousin in marriage and life. Jacob, if that is his name, you may be in love with Isabella. But you haven't experienced lost of a love before nor been in a real relationship to know what you want in a partner. Seth and Isabella both have done so, and both felt it was not right for them. And when their eyes met, it was an instant love connection for they were born and made for each other. That is how I see bonds, while Marcus sees the bonds that you shared with someone. Many were shocked of her speech. As Marcus took over, said, for example, the bond between Isabella and Seth, it is a golden set of bonds that they have with each other, as their unborn child has a bond to them with a pink-blue ribbon to each parent, blue for Seth and pink to Isabella. And it is very strong bond, unbreakable bond that they all shared with each other. And then Sam, your bond to your Emily, I think her name was or is also same, just not as strong, as you haven't gotten to the point of a marital bond with each other, like Isabella and Seth has, but it will be there, and your bond to each other is also very unbreakable, like most of the others around you have to their own imprint. It is unbreakable, for when you take the decision to go from friends to lovers, it changes to an unbreakable bond forever. So no worries that anyone would even steal you away, Isabella, for I know of the rules that Utlapa with Ateria the first without Ephraim there to put a stop to it, made s. You that the punishment of trying to steal another man's wife, or in these cases a mate, would result in death of the one who tries to steal someone's mate or wife away for selfish reasons. Didam, my beloved one, had the power of seeing happiness in people, and she shared with me how she saw it, and I in turn started to learn her gift in my own gift, and that is how I can see those of you who are imprinted on, have a great, happy bond to each other. And you should keep going at it, to make it stronger for each day to each year together. Many were shocked of his tale of his own power and that he spoke of his beloved wife, Didam. Bella asked softly to him, may I ask what happened to your beloved Didam? At that he sighed sadly, then said, it was true werewolves that came to our castle one full moon night about 50 years ago. And they saw my wife as welcomed gift to take out, and so they did, and when I first felt our bond die out, I wanted to die with her, but I kept myself strong by remembering her instead, and that has kept me going, as I know my second chance of new love and true mate is waiting for me somewhere in the world. I just don't know where or when she will arrive in my life though. But in meantime I will do my best to be strong and ready when she does come into my life. Who knows, she might be a reincarnation of my Didam. Making some chuckles, not in a mean way but for it sounded funny in their ears. And Bella gave him a apologetic look, and he just gave her a soft smile back, letting her know it was okay. Arrow and Keys with their wives looked rather shocked of H's admission and tale of potential new true mate and love was out there for him. And soon after that, the Volturi went into hiding spots around them, most up in the trees above them, as they were given permission for this once to be on their side for now. Bella and Seth stood holding their arms around themselves and hid behind a tree where Marcus stood above them hiding with Heidi, they believed her name was. Both of them just smiled up to the two, who smiled back down to the two happy pair, then Seth stiffened when he could smell the Cullens coming around. The smell of the pack hid the fact of the Volturi being there. So plus on their side at least. As they all stood around stiffened up and had a sneer on their faces of the smell from the Cullens were way worse than the one that the Volturis had. As they fed on humans or blood bags, that made them smell a little more normal, but the Cullens' smell of bleach, sugar and somewhat woodsy, it was a rather rancid stench together. As soon they had come in view, the pack stood back. When the Volturis came in view of the Cullens, and every one of them gasped and paled in fear of seeing them, there but Carlyle, having lived with them, considerated the kings as friends of his. Went forward, said, Arrow, Keys, Marcus, even your wives and your guards are here, why? At that Arrow gave Abbott of angry sneer, as he said, oh, we were called in by the pack after hearing what your two youngest been up to during the nights when humans normally are deep sleeping, and should get it without being disrupted, isn't that right, Carlyle? After all you play the role of being a doctor. At that he nodded with confused look, as he said, who is accusing my two youngest to harassing someone on the phone middle of the night? At that Bella and Seth came out. And Alice and Edward gasped at the sight that they still were very much together and Bella still had a baby bump, and the two held hands, as Carlyle said to them. Isabella, Seth, what is my two youngest two doing to you? At Bella gave a angry glare and stare, while Seth said in strong, but angry voice. Your precious Edward and Alice has for last time of 3 days ago, called my wife's phone to harass us middle of the night. With disturbing stories that made us be left awake. For whenever we tried to even fall asleep either nightmares or another phone call would be called to us again to disrupt and disturb our sleep. After almost 4 days of almost no sleep, we told Sam and the pack about what's going on, as it should not be for me to look like I did back then, as we both were sickly pale and Bella was on verge of a breakdown and miscarrying our child, as sleep is very important for a pregnant woman to have, as it helps them to grow their baby and make sure that the baby is safe. Something that those two didn't even think of. as they knew that Bella and I are expecting our first of many more children together, as it is due in early April to mid-April. Those almost made us lose our LD due to their own childish acts of calling Bella's phone to tell us some disturbing stories and tries to get Bella alone so they could kidnap her, cut the baby out and change her unwillingly to a vampire. When she has told you all many times over, that she will not become one, as she is my true mate, and love. That is not Edward or Alice's choice to make for her, she makes it herself, little children. Many were shocked of hearing his voice being that strong while also very angry, and Bella held onto his shoulder, to keep his cool and not shift right there and then, but he came close, Our touch and kisses on his shoulder made it easier to control. Edward and Alice stared at the ground with anger and no remorse of whatsoever. While Carlisle looked shocked of what they had heard, as Arrow said. Well, seems you haven't taught your children what is right and wrong, and also how to know who is their true mate either, as it is not a vision or smell or even a touch, it is more than that, you have to look them in their eyes. And not be able to charm or dazzle into thinking they are, nor a vision like Mary Alice seems to think it is how you find a mate for your precious brother, Edward. When he never had one as the one who was mate is no longer alive, isn't that right, Marcus? Yes, his mate and himself met many years ago, when Edward Boy went off on his own leaving his father and mother, to rebel himself. Sadly the one who was your true mate, you killed him when you sucked his blood out of his body for Atraya's thoughts, when you should have known with time things changes and you change with them. But sadly your head stayed in same time frame of 1918s and where women were submissive, but your mate was not a woman, Edward, but a man who would have loved you for who you are and not what you pretend to be. As you are homophobic moronic little child with Atraya's thoughts on sexual relationship and other areas. If your father had trained you right from get-go, you would never become what you are today. Which is an obnoxious little brat with no mate or love as you don't know what love is. And now with your mate dead by your own hands back then, your new mate will be another male. But it will take time to find him again, as he is not born yet. And he will have different life experience and choices of his own, that you have to learn to live with and learn to grow with time. You will never become an adult as you are frozen at age 17 but act like a bratty 4-5-year-old. And Alice your true mate was James by the way, the one who killed the man that changed you, and James was your mate all along. Not Jasper, as Jasper is still out there searching for him. Alice you also need lessons how to treat other humans and fellow vampires, for your other true mate will not take your behavior. As he will punish you like Jasper should have done from get-go of your faked mate relationship. Jasper is a hot male, and has been taught by his creator what is right and wrong. Although you got depressed and antsy after a while of being with her, that is for you let go of your created one to explore on their own. Edward may have tried but Carlisle you never taught him anything valuable. Same with Esme, Rosalie. Emmett as you neglected them for Alice and Edward being your favorite children, well no more of that, isn't that right Keys? At that most looked shocked of what Marcus had revealed. While Edward had disgusted look on his face of hearing his mate is a male not a female. Alice was angry looking, and Jasper looked revealed for now. Emmett and Rosalie just looked at each other, as they said. Sorry to disrupt what you are going to say next, Keys, but are we true mates to each other, Marcus? At that Marcus gave a biggest grin. Oh yes, you are true mates, as you had luck to find each other like the way I know you found each other. Never distrust on your bond to each other ever again. The two nodded relieved, as Keys just smirked, said. It is all right you needed to know that of your own. Now what Marcus said is the truth. So Edward, Alice with Carlisle and Esme you are to come with us to Volterra for next 100 years as you clearly need lessons of how to be a true vampire. You are also not allowed to feed on animals while being with us, as we don't have any animals nearby, so you are going to be taught on feed on blood bags of human blood. No more choices of that either. So Jane, Alec, Dimitri, Felix, take care of them for us and take their Uncunis bodies to our airplane. Jasper, Rosalie, Emmett you are free to go wherever you want, and never come back to this area for good. At that the three took off being freed, and never to be seen ever again, while the pack thanked the Volturis tremulously for their help and that they are welcome to come back in future if needed again. And the four Cullens were forever banned from coming with them too. The Volturis had no issues of that either, as they told the pack that those four would live a horrid life at least until they show signs of growing and moving on with time changes. And then they left the area too for now at least, and everyone cheered that the Cullens were gone for good now. Seth just smiled and kissed his wife, who just wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him back passionately, while Jacob stared in jealousy still to this day. Others cheered for the two's happiness. And then they all went back to the council hall for a meeting with their elders and new leader, as Billy had been demoted as one after everything. It took days to celebrate the news that the Cullens were gone and taken care of. But Bella and Seth were going stronger for each day as the pregnancy went better after they really got on the groove of being more alert and healthy after getting their sleep back again to normal. Months later, Emily and Sam had told the pack and the tribe that they were expecting their first child together and was due in November, and it was now nearing April, and May. Airing Bella's due date, which was pointed to be April the 2nd, but first 7 days nothing happened, but then on April 8th, the labor began early morning, and around 5 p.m. the two welcomed a son, who they named Matt Andres Clearwater. Who weighed about 8 pounds and was 20.5 inches long, and very gorgeous baby boy too. Many of their friends and family celebrated their news of having little son now. Em and Emily was first to visit them in the hospital, and that was when Bella and Seth asked them if they with Quill and his own mate Claire would like to be their son's godparents, and they all were shocked of this, but accepted it with humbleness. Soon the pack's children joined in, as Sam and Emily had their own son in November, who they named as Jason Josiah, JJ, Yuli, then Embry with Nora had a dogger, whose name was Molly Andrea Yuli, then Quill and Claire has their own dogger week later than Josiah, and they named their dogger Novely Molly Adria. Leah and Jacob still were hung up on the two they could and would never have their own, so they had no children nor a love to care for either. Jared and Kim had twins, one of each, whom they named Tyler and Emma. 2 years after giving birth to their son, Matt was born. They had a dogger, who they named Jenna Molly Clearwater. Matt loved his little sister a lot despite being just 2 years old. In the end, about 4 years being caught of Quill's murder, Billy died in prison. While Charlie, being taken into a hospital, died there on the operating table as he was in for a heart surgery. But he died before the surgery even began. The end.